Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, February the 13th. We're very glad to see you all in chambers. As we begin, I do wish to acknowledge that we are meeting formally on the territory of the Sauk Nation here today with gratitude. For those of you that are new to council chambers, just a few housekeeping details. If you're looking for a washroom, you'll find them through this hallway here down the hall. And also please turn off your mobile devices. It can just be distracting, and also note that we are now fully webcasting. But the camera is focused on council and whoever may approach the microphone. So on that note, council, I'll turn your attention to item number 3. And that will be that the agenda for February 13th regular meeting of council be adopted as amended, including the addition of supplemental information for item 9.2.2700 Sun River Way zoning inquiry, and second addition of new business, item number 11.2, notice of motion brought forward by myself. So I'll look for a mover. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Questions, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed. That's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is item 4, and we have a block of meeting minutes here. So that'll be that the following minutes of council be adopted as circulated: January 16th, special council meeting, January 23rd, regular council, January 30th, special council, and February 6th, special council meeting. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any corrections or questions? Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so I did to you, Mayor Tate. I did send through some corrections to corporate services, and I wonder whether they need to be addressed tonight or whether that was sufficient.
Okay, if I could have staff answer that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe that the changes were in there. They don't change the intent of the minutes. We'll just correct a little bit of grammar.
Great,
Well,
thank you.
Grammar and factual points.
Would you like to read?
Well, I'll
through?
read a few of them.
Maybe
So-
not the grammar because those are
Yeah,
noted,
no, I
but the
would-
other ones, please.
No, there wasn't a grammatical matter. It was on page 2 of 4 of January 16th. Under council discussion of the Sauk Homelessness Coalition delegation that day. First point, I'm the current co-chair of the Sauk Homelessness Coalition, and Mayor Tate is the founding co-chair. That's an important point. Melanie Cunningham of the Sauk Shelter Society is the other co-chair of that organization. On the second bullet point is the statement, the organization must be funded in a manner that supports timely service offerings. I'm confused about the meaning of that, and I have made a suggestion that that line should read that the Sauk Homelessness Coalition advocates on behalf of the Sauk Shelter Society and works to ensure that the Sauk Shelter Society is funded in a manner that supports timely service offerings. So that brings some
Specificity.
That's the word to that.
As long as you can spell it.
7th bullet point is fine. 8th bullet point, yes, the Sauk Homelessness Coalition is a satellite of the Alliance to End Homelessness in the Capital Region. And so the reference to the Canadian Alliance is incorrect.
The new name is just working its way through the organization. So that's where that might be where there is a Canadian Alliance. It is different.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
That is all. Okay, staff, you have all of that? Okay. Anything else from members of council? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you for that. Okay, that'll bring us to item 5.1. We have our delegation section. We have 2 delegations tonight. The first one is the Village Initiative, a presentation by Cindy Andrew. And all of our delegations have 5 minutes allocated for you to present, and then we close and move on. So please come forward, and our staff will put the timer on so that you'll have a sense of where we're at with the time. And we'll open it up to you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation. And I should start with thank you for being part of the Village. District of Sauk has joined other neighboring municipalities and about 30 some other organizations who share a commitment to promoting the health and well-being of children, youth, and families across our area. So delighted to be here and to share in 5 minutes minus 10, a little bit about the Village Initiative. Oh, see, Carolyn, I did it already. I'm supposed to, this is weird. Look that way, but point this way. It's not working for me. Can you advance them, Carolyn? Do you mind? Does this ding into my 5 minutes with the, just want to clarify because every second counts. Okay. Are we okay? Okay, thank you. I don't need the first page, and it basically is just wanting to extend thanks. I do want to give acknowledge two other really important organizations who are part of the Village who are here with us tonight. Souk Family Resource Society, headed by Nikki Logans, their executive director, and BGC, formerly Boys and Girls Club of Southern Vancouver Island, Dallas Dixon, their executive director. Thanks for joining me. So if I misspeak or whatever, they'll keep me in line. As you can see up on the slides, this network is really a compilation or a composite of a variety of organizations from non-government, government agencies, local municipalities, faith groups, funders, all who basically are committed, as I said, to doing a better job across our region, Souk West Shore, and how we work to support the health and well-being. And in essence, we'd like to be seen as a mechanism to really fast track towards some addressing some of the strategic priorities that our region, including Souk, of course, is wrestling with. Next slide, or do I hit the magic? Okay. Why we started really this notion, and I think I'll probably credit Nikki for some of the earlier comments when we first came together, and it was an invitation by the school district to say, we can't do all that needs to get done. In fact, no one system can. And Nikki very wisely said, and this isn't just about children. Children come with families. So what are we doing to support them? And oh, by the way, school districts, you're not the only ones growing as fast. We too in our community are. We need to de-silo. We need to work together better in a more effective, coordinated kind of way, recognizing that the demands are outstripping supplies. And they have for a while now. So in essence, that's really why we came. You can see the slides, they're with your agenda package. So I invite you to read in a bit more detail and encourage you to pause for a moment in your quiet time to consider the quote that's there on the slide that really does speak to the fact that now is the time that we need to be doing things differently. And we're not even about getting ahead of stuff. We're literally trying to catch up. So responding to the needs, this is a glance, and especially given the shortage of time, but suffice to say, while many of our kids and families are doing just fine, there are enough that should make us all feel a degree of apprehension and worry. And whether we see that in terms of some of the problematic behaviors we might see in our community, or through substance misuse or mental health challenges or youth vandalism, et cetera. Those are.
Sorry, can I just pause?
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just
Sorry.
wondering, staff, if you can just shift that monitor. We had our group photos done, so maybe if we
Okay.
just shifted it outwards, then the audience could see it better.
Oh, that might be helpful, actually.
Yeah, sorry, and we'll
That's
add
okay.
that time back.
Okay, thank you. Another 10 seconds, great. Yay. So, and this just gives you a very quick snapshot of some of what concerns us. And for those who joined Island Health when their board was recently in Souk to present, you might have heard Dr. Murray Fife was speaking about some of the areas of concern and opportunities for investment. And he did do a little bit of a shout out to this notion of the Village Initiative, which is frankly all of us, to recognize that COVID has been particularly hard on young people, and we're only beginning to see its impacts. So yet more reasons why we need to get ahead of this. First, we need to catch up. The last bullet on this slide to me rings true, I think, for all of us, is we firmly believe that nothing about us without us, and that voice of youth and how critical that is to listen to and to attend to and to respect and to learn from. And so, and Searchin, another member of the Village Initiative, so Souk Region Community Health Network, too many acronyms in the world that I live in. Oh. Oh, there we go. Okay, not quite there yet, but that works. That's a good way to remind me to move on. So we have, that Searchin, as well as others in our region, have done some listening and learning from young people, but there's more to do. Maybe if I could just plug right now a lovely campaign that for youth who are interested in change making, that the United Way is very eager to fund any young people in this community who are interested in change making kinds of opportunities. So if they have a great idea, there's a wonderful grant, $500 to help make their community, whether that's their classroom, their school, their whole community, a better place. Encourage you to look it up on United Way. So the three priorities, the three strategic priorities determined by the leadership of the Village Initiative. This is everybody from municipalities and all the people who sit around this table. Three key ones. One is around space. We have a lineup of service providers saying we have operational capital we're willing to redeploy to better serve the needs of Sooke and West Shore. We do not have the space to do it in. So from a municipal perspective of where you can make a difference, zoning and getting curious and digging in about opportunities of how do we create space. And I'll do a plug here for WorkLink, another member who is investing in your community, who is also has on their horizon a second building that really can be a hub for community social services. So just plant that seed as a wonderful example of an opportunity that's coming down the pipe. Enhanced community planning, connection, and service coordination.
So we are over time
Oh,
now.
already, okay. Well, those are our three priorities. So I'll just
Counselor
be quiet.
McMath,
Make a motion to extend
for how many minutes?
3.
3 minutes? Okay, seconded by Counselor Bateman. So there's a motion to extend the time by 3 minutes, moved and seconded. All those in favor? None opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry to
Thank-
keep interrupting you.
That's okay. Thank you for indulging me and for 3 minutes. Enhanced community planning and connection and coordination. A good example of that is this notion of a shared understanding of what our local data tells us. And we have multiple leaders from multiple systems saying we're drowning in data, but we're not using it well. Let's get a better understanding of what the data tells us. Good example is last year we had a middle years survey of all grade 6 kids. That data is fresh. That's the voice, that's the behavior, those are the challenges from our grade 6 students. Is only one tiny example of the data sets out there that we should all be using and thinking about as part of informing our decisions in whatever organization we're in. I'm going to move on to number 3, which is around increased and number 2, the data was just one example. There are many others and I would welcome questions. You'll have my email and I hope this is the continuing of a long, beautiful relationship and you can reach out anytime. Number 3, in terms of increased capacity of communities and organizations for better service, a good example of that is we all have stretched workforces. And we have workforces who are saying the same things around, we need this, we need that in terms of, for instance, professional learning needs. We have a lot of changeover in our frontline service providers. Many are who are saying, here are some issue areas, really important ones, from cultural safety to trauma-informed practice, to just evidence-based around addressing mental health and substance use in communities. And so let's not work by silo, let's work across sectors and let's support the professional learning needs of the frontline service providers who are the feet on the street, frontline serving the community that we so love and care about. So that would be the 3rd priority. Next. Almost done. Stronger together, 3 ways. 1, infrastructure. Please keep in mind the space shortage. We really are counting on that. If you choose to have relevant committees and you think that there is a role for someone from the Village Initiative to contribute, whether ad hoc or standing, we would welcome that. And 3rd is I want to not only give acknowledgement, but encourage you to have staff like Dawn, like Matthew, like Gail and others to be engaged in the work of the village, because it will not happen if we continue. Nobody can continue to do all of what's required by working the way we used to work. And this is really about lift our heads, look to our neighboring municipalities, look to the sectors that we work with to go, how do we do things better to support our kids and families? Thank you so much for your time and for the extra time. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for being with us on behalf of all of council for your time and the PowerPoints. And we look forward, perhaps our staff can share it out because I don't have it yet. So I think it's always nice to have the PowerPoint later to reflect on. So we'll look forward to receiving that. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to delegation number 2, I believe is our fire chief, Chief Ryder, with your quarterly update.
Yes,
you.
good evening, your worship and council. Thank you for that. So I'll provide you with just a brief update as to what's been taking place this year to this point. Actually,
Sorry, Chief, as per the other delegation, the timer's going to start. So it's in the delegation section. So I'm following procedures. Sorry, Chief, you got 5 minutes.
okay, I can do it. Okay, so as I was saying, we've had a busy start to this year. Our call volumes have spiked for the month of January. As most of you were probably aware, we've hired a new deputy chief and he will start work March 6th. We're in the process. Today we wrapped up interviews to hire 2 new career firefighters. Been doing lots of work with the planning department regularly as we continue to see development growth in Souk. Also doing some work collaborating with the Juan de Fuca Island departments to plan a fire expo to be able to educate grade 4 students in regards to community safety and fire safety. Paid on call recruit training has commenced and is keeping us busy on the weekends. I'm currently working with the CRD in regards to the Silver Spray agreement, and I hope to start putting the sort of final touches on that. Also reviewing the fire master plan to set priorities and start implementation of that plan in the very near future. Total responses for January of this year, 101. One was a fire of note. It was a garage fire in the Whiff and Spit area. To date, we've done about 121 calls. The training for Souk Fire Rescue, we just finished an apparatus driver training and pump operator program to hopefully provide some of our paid on call staff with the skills to do relief firefighting in the event that our career staff are busy or tied up. We had paid on call recruits go to the Otter Point Training Center for a live fire training exhibition. Our Fire Smart coordinator is currently working with Blackwell and Associates to update our community wildfire resilience plan, which is approximately, I think, 10 or 11 years old, so it needs an update. The coordinator will be attending the Fire Expo that I just spoke about to represent Souk Fire Rescue and will be educating students on Fire Smart and campfire safety. Emergency management, our ESS coordinator and our ESS team have met and discussed the work plan for 2023. We also welcome 2 new members to the team. Work is continuing on with our island partners, albeit difficult to attend all meetings due to other priorities and no deputy chief at this time. Roles will be looked at to determine the best fit for the emergency program coordinator position, which I'm currently the interim EPC. Our CAO, Mr. Schaefer, has been actively involved with the REMP committee in regards to regional emergency management. Still working with CRD in regards to dispatch. I've been working with Saanich Fire in preparation for our new model in April, our 24/7 model. And we are also waiting for the CRD to implement our new records management system software and hope to be doing some training for that in the near future. In regards to work in the community, myself and staff did a fire extinguisher training session with the Souk Library on 2 different occasions. And staff are also working with different organizations in regards to fire drills, and the library being the latest one. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much, Chief, and I stand corrected. Police and fire are exempted from the 5-minute. We just have you at the front of the agenda, so you don't need to miss any calls waiting till the end of the agenda. But thank you for being within that 5 minutes anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodness. Yes, Counselor Bateman.
So we're in a situation here with no questions are allowed of delegations.
Well, I think given that this is our fire chief, if you do have a question, I
Yeah.
will take one.
Well, I guess my only question would be, can we get that in writing? Can you share your notes? And perhaps in future, these could be part of the public record as an ongoing.
I certainly can forward that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Thank you
A lot of good information, so it's just
Yeah,
hard
really.
to capture all of it.
very much so. And the 24/7 model, did I hear April was your launch for that? Yes.
Officially in April, we'll have the bodies, but it probably won't start till maybe later, maybe May, by the time we get the training in place and get everybody familiar with what we're trying to do. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. Next up is item 6, report of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just further to what Chief Ryder said, this afternoon, I was in a meeting with the Regional Emergency Management Partnerships Steering Committee. We received presentations from the ministry. Minister Bowen Ma was part of the meeting. Chair Ted Robbins, who's the CAO of the CRD, was part of that meeting. It was very informative. Also attending that meeting was CRD Chair Colin Plant. So that's just adding to, the knowledge base and forwarding that information to the chief and his crew later on. I think it's very important that the district take an active part in that partnership, and for as long as we're able to, I intend to keep it going. Couple of other things to update council with. We have a brief update on the development procedures study that we have undertaken. The first phase of that, which was the review of internal processes. We have a final report from the consultant, and Mr. Paulo and Mr. Lovett will be bringing forward a report on February 27th to allow for council to see. It'll provide the report from the consultant as well as our implementation plan and next steps forward. The bylaw 404 internal review process is complete. Correct, Mr. We're just finalizing that. And the next steps on that will be external review. And we have a number of people who are willing to, who have stepped forward to help us with an external review of that, of the new bylaw, new subdivision control bylaw. We also have new software for the planning and plan checking. And we'll be planning, training, undertaking training availability for first the people who have their hands on the process on an ongoing basis, and then potentially for other members of staff who are interested and who could benefit from that, from using that program. And in terms of the official community plan, your worship, we're looking for space on a regular or special committee of the whole meeting in as early in March as we can schedule it to provide council with a status report and options for next steps in moving that process forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Could you maybe give an update on council strategic plan and just
Yes.
roughly when we can anticipate something out?
Yes, earlier today we had a meeting of senior staff, and we will have some information coming to council tomorrow. I wasn't able to get it together for you today, but we'll get it to you tomorrow for some review, and like to meet with council sooner rather than later to talk about how we can move that forward as well. We'll try to schedule that, considering that LGLA is this week. It will probably be next week sometime, to try to have a sit down with council and senior staff and push through that. But you'll have a document that you can review and let me know, lets us know if it meets your needs, and how we can move that process forward as well, because we'd like to get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. So council, stay tuned for dates. It looks like there's two pending special council, one committee of the whole coming our way. So look to see what we can work there. And just given there's a lot of moving pieces in everyone's schedule, we're shooting for quorum here. I recognize everyone has some things coming up. So Ms. Machado.
Thank you, worship. The committee of the whole that is scheduled for next week is already full, so we
Yeah.
would need a separate day scheduled.
We don't like to meet for 7 hours. Probably not. Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, any questions from members of council? Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, item 7 is our public question and comment period. So this here is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on items on tonight's agenda. So we do have a timed limit of 2 minutes per speaker. And I usually call for first time speakers first, and then go to second time speakers after we've sort of gone through all the first time speakers. So when you come forward, we just ask that you give us your full name and where you live. We don't require your address. And please note that we need you to turn on the microphone. Ms. Machado will do the timer, and it's all on the webcast, just so you know. You can watch yourself later if you like.
Terrence Martin, Souk. Tonight I'm speaking to agenda items 10.1 and 10.3, traffic and highways regulation and municipal ticket bylaws respectively. It's an important function of bylaws to mediate relations between neighbors in an equitable manner and provide a civilized, consistent, predictable, and reliable dispute resolution mechanism instead of people taking enforcement into their own hands. particularly when it comes to quiet enjoyment of one's property. It should go without saying that a property owner has a valid bylaw complaint if a neighbor takes it upon themselves to install a gate on a public road and cut off all access to our property. I'll read the substantive resentence of the response from the bylaw officer to my complaint. Both our bylaw and the Highways Act define highways as roads intended for public use, and went on to dismiss the complaint. A bylaw that is not enforced in response to a complaint has the effect of no bylaw at all. I won't read it in here, but there's considerably more to the Highway Act definition than that. And of course, I'm a member of the public, as is anyone else who wants to use that road. The road in question is listed in the Modi Road Register and was maintained by the province as recently as August 2000, following which jurisdiction was transferred to Sooke. There are over 7 decades of complaints on file about this landowner obstructing that road, with as many warnings given, including a direct refusal by the Minister of Highways to remove the highway dedication and allow them to obstruct the road. So my question is this: will council direct bylaw enforcement to enforce the bylaw, or am I to take matters into my own hands?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. We'll consider that when the item comes forward later.
I might take a second to speak to this now because I see a lot of my neighbors are here.
Okay, but you're finished your
I'm
2
finished.
minutes, so we will invite you back after we've heard from other first-time speakers. Okay, thank you. Other speakers, please, on tonight's agenda. This is the only time on the agenda that the public can speak.
Good evening, council. My name is Andrew Brigadier and I'm in Sun River. I'm here with regards to the matter of housing with regards to the housing issue in Sun River and the application for rezoning in additional homes to go into Upper Sun River. A lot of my neighbors here, including myself, have major concerns with this with regards to where a secondary exit is going to be put, where these homes are going to access Phillips Road and everything that comes along with that, the infrastructure leading into Sun River, as well as leading out to Sooke Core. Where the secondary exit is going to be placed is of great concern to us. I myself live on the street that is up for consideration. I'm very unimpressed that it is being considered, considering it is currently a dead-end street. There is an owl habitat. It's zoned for F1. It's watershed. And there's currently another area that it can be placed within, I'd say 500 meters that was slotted for that. A lot of my neighbors are very concerned as well, and you're probably going to hear from them in about 30 seconds. This is my first time at council. I don't know what I'm saying as far as being professional in the way it's coming out. However, I have a lot of neighbors who couldn't attend tonight who feel the same way I do. We're concerned about the traffic already on Phillips, already on Sun River Way. We want to see a secondary exit if there's going to be additional homes going in there. 28 homes to 140 is a huge difference. There's families, 2 cars, that's potentially 300 cars on our streets that are going to be clogging up Phillips Road if we don't have that exit.
Thank you, Ms. Brigadier.
Okay.
We appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you. Do I have other speakers tonight?
Nick Dickinson Wild, Sooke. Well, East Sooke technically, but it kind of posts as Sooke. So I'm speaking on the Sun River rezoning application. I'm concerned that's not following the transportation master plan, which denotes a connection between Pasco Road and Sun River Road as an ideal future connection to maintain emergency access, not just for emergency use, but for regular use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other speakers tonight?
Hi, I'm Tiffany Fawcett and I live in Sun River as well. And I have concerns also about a second access route being put on the end of our street. It's a dead end street. There's no sidewalks. There's a million kids. There's a million cars parked on both sides of the street, like already because of all the suites in the homes. And it's like, I have 3 kids that have to walk to the bus stop every day. It's very concerning. They're used to playing out there. We have basketball court, we have hockey nets, we have like, it's, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for speaking tonight. Other speakers this evening?
My name's John Erzinger. I'm a resident of Sun River. I'm one of many who are quite concerned about the proposed development at the top of Sun River Way. Currently, there are 4 crosswalks that cross Sun River, and with the additional traffic, which was stated in your report to be 100 plus vehicles in the AM rush, 134 in the PM. That poses a lot of serious concerns. We have a daycare center. We have a small top park, not to mention the access to Sun River Way is quite narrow, and the right turn is kind of sketchy at times. And my concern is, where is all the commercial traffic going to go? Is it going to go right down Sun River and then have to make that very sharp right turn onto Phillips? And then we're not even talking about the ingress and egress on Phillips Road as well, because the bridge is, I don't know how many years old it is, but I don't think it's had any substantial upgrade, certainly not since I've been here. And I think there's many more residents of Sun River who have similar concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Other speakers? Any first time, because I do have someone, come on up. Come on up, Mr. Martin, for your second time, if you like.
Terrence Martin. I also live in Sun River. I didn't actually know this was on the agenda until I saw my neighbors out front there, and I didn't know if that was a good thing, but anyhow, I think, so I'm not really prepared as to what it is. I haven't read the material that much, but I did see one thing, and I think in a nutshell, at 9.2, Appendix F needs to be killed outright. There should be no discussion of that whatsoever. Sun River had a public input session on this development. I think it was last year, and there was no mention of anything remotely like this. And I attended that, and I suggested there that they needed, the first thing that they need to consider before they consider even building up there, much less increasing the density, is run the road through to Pasco. There's no sense whatsoever in what they're talking about, and you can't put any more traffic down Phillips Road, particularly when it starts increasing down there, as it will if they ever develop the bypass down by Sea Park there. So my suggestion is somebody needs to tell those guys over there to go back to planning on this thing and start listening to people that live in the neighborhood before they come forward with a plan like this and get it on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We have quiet, please. I know that it's sometimes nice to support someone, but we also want to keep it fair for those that may have a different view. Thank you. Other speakers tonight? Anyone for a second time? This will be my final call for any members of the public for tonight's. This is your only chance, final chance. We're all good. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your comments. So we'll move on to item 8, which is our consent agenda, and that is that item 8.1 be adopted by general consent. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor McMath. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Reports, item 9. 9.1 is the initial attack apparatus purchase. Over to our chief, please.
Good evening and thanks once again. And I don't think I can do this one in 5 minutes, so. Is it okay? Okay, so before you tonight, the recommendation speaks that council approve Rosenbauer America, Rocky Mountain Phoenix Emergency Vehicles as a successful proponent under the request for proposal for the purchase of a new initial fire attack apparatus in the amount of 777,046 plus taxes. Just to summarize some things, Sioux Fire Rescue requires a new initial attack apparatus to replace an aging brush fire vehicle, as well as adding a vehicle to the fleet that will align with recommendations from our Fire Master Plan of 2022. Rosenbauer America has been selected as the successful proponent through analysis of a proposal evaluation that scores proposals based on bid price, build time, and mandatory desirable criteria that will allow us to operate according to our response model. This topic was before you December 13th, 2021, and it was included in the 5-year financial plan. It was again before you on September 26, 2022. Council resolved to authorize staff to issue a tender for the purchase of a new fire apparatus for up to $900,000. And it would be to be borrowed under section 175 of the community charter from the Municipal Finance Authority. The report, the RFP was posted on the District of Sioux website and BC bid from November 9th, 2022 through January 13th, 2023. In response, we received proposals from 3 suppliers. The 3 proposals received were evaluated and weighted by bid price, build time, as well as mandatory and desired criteria for a maximum score of 100. Note that bid prices do not include taxes. The 3 suppliers that placed bids were Rosenbauer America, Hub Fire Engines, and Commercial Emergency Equipment. Rosenbauer America, Rocky Mountain Phoenix has been selected as a successful proponent. In regards to any legal implications, we followed the purchasing and disposal of assets policy. In regards to budget and financial impacts, funds to be borrowed under section 175 of the community charter. And the funds will be repaid within 5 years with no rights of renewal. A purchase order will be provided to the proponent and no funds will be required until the delivery of the chassis. You'll note in this section here, there's considerable time delays in regards to supply chain issues based on COVID. So the forecasted completion date for this vehicle will be approximately 755 days. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. For the price though, that's locked in, like we won't see, okay, the delivery in I can't remember how many months you said, but now it's gone up because of X, Y, and Z. So we're protected even though we don't have the vehicle for some time or the chassis.
Somewhat, if this passes tonight, then we will be protected with the price that's quoted right in front of you. If it doesn't pass tonight, there's a good chance it could rise.
No pressure. Okay. Thank you, Chief. It's just important because sometimes you hear, okay, well, we're quoted this, but on delivery, it's that. So in this way, I think that's important. Other questions from members of council? Councillor Pearson?
Yes, to you. My question would be to the finance department. Is there any, are we retiring any debts that make this affordable, or is this all new payments?
Over to our finance director.
To your worship, it is in the 5-year financial plan. It's called Engine 204 in the financial plan. It got changed to a new truck now. So yes, that was the strategy with that, is the water tender debt should be falling off the books by the time payments would be required for this, as well as the first, for engine 1, we borrowed in 2 buckets as well. One when the chassis was coming, and then so that debt should be falling off within the term of when this loan will be, the payments will be incurred. So mostly the water tender would be the biggest debt that would be falling off the books that will help offset some of these payments. And this has been included in the financial plan.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Bateman?
Sure. Well, I'm just, I know it was discussed through to you, Madam Mayor. How is that? Okay. To you, Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if the chief could give us a quick summary of the advantages of these initial attack apparatus for first response.
Certainly, I think, first and foremost, it's good asset management that we retire our aging apparatus instead of continuing to put money into it. So when we looked at what we were going to purchase, we looked at the fire master plan, which had some really good recommendations, as you're aware. And one of the things that they suggested we look at closely is our response model. So meaning trying to respond and be somewhat effective within that 10-minute response time. And how does that look with minimal staff, meaning 2 firefighters? So this particular vehicle will allow us to be a little bit more efficient, I guess, with less numbers on the truck. And it's going to be a little bit narrower, not quite as long a wheelbase, so it allows access to different driveways or laneways. So that's one the primary driver behind this purchase for sure.
I also did a quick Google of the company, and they have supplied quite a few BC fire departments, Lanceville most recently. Did you have the opportunity to speak with any of these departments to ensure that this is the right kind of supplier?
Specifically me, no, I did not. However, my previous role in another community, we had purchased through that same company. And based on the information provided to me from our fleet repair captain and our mechanic, this was the particular company of choice.
Anything else from members of council? Okay. So the recommendation is that council approve Rosenbauer America Rocky Mountain Phoenix emergency vehicles as the successful proponent under the request for proposals RFP for the purchase of a new initial attack fire apparatus in the amount of $777,406 plus taxes. 46 plus, as noted, moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Would you like to speak to it again? Okay, Councillor Beddoes. Anything from anyone else? Nope. Okay, all those in favor, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much for your work, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, item 9.2, 2700 Sun River Way zoning inquiry. Over to staff, please.
Your worship, the developer of Sun River Estates has applied for rezoning of the northwest corner of the development, which would be rezoned, which requires rezoning to allow for the proposed 140 new housing units. The developers made a number of requests in that letter, in that correspondence. We initially received the first take on this in 2019. There's been a lot of correspondence between the planning division, the planning department rather, and the applicant over the intervening period. Last year, the fire chief and Mr. Paulo, the director of planning, walked the site that was being proposed for a portion of this redevelopment to make sure that it was logistically doable. The developer met with yourself and I in my office to provide their take on the benefits of this particular proposal, and we subsequently, pardon me, we received the attached letter again with the request that it be brought forward to council. So in the intervening time frame, it's been studied, and there were, as I say, a number of asks made of the staff here. The applicant notes that the District of Sooke would, if their letter was followed, if their application was followed as it was as requested, that the District of Sooke would be the body responsible for negotiating of a right-of-way agreement with the owner of the adjacent property. That property is included in the agricultural land reserve. The second ask would be that the district would be the body responsible for making the application to the Agricultural Land Commission to allow the use of that part of the adjacent property for the proposed emergency exit. And that the district would be responsible for applying to the provincial government for a grant to fund the emergency road access across the adjacent property. The applicant suggested that they would provide plans on a cost estimate budget for the completion of the emergency road access that would include a bridge or a culvert over Demamuel Creek. We had the administration noted a number of concerns as outlined in the report. Regarding Phillips Road, the proposal notes that access and egress to the additional dwelling units would be via Sun River Way. However, the only way to get to Sun River Way is to go up Phillips Road. It doesn't reference concerns which had been identified about the condition of the two bridges that connect Highway 14 with the upper section of Phillips Road. Those bridges are getting old. And so we're considering putting in the budget engineering study to determine what work needs to be done on them in order to maintain them. There was a traffic impact assessment provided in 2020 that projected 104 additional trips during the AM, the morning peak hour, and 139 additional trips in the PM peak hour. If those additional 140 units were constructed, those are just the peak times, doesn't address the other traffic that might go in and out of there during the day or in the evening. The emergency access as identified by the applicant, which would go down, as I say, the adjacent property towards Helgeson Road. Thank you. That is not ideal. The Transportation Master Plan identifies on page 44 that the major street connection that should be made when and if the development occurs north of Helgeson Road, or to facilitate further developments in Sun River and on Phillips Road north of the bridge, an extension of Pasco Road would be the preferred way. The District of Sauk staff, however, has discussed with the applicant alternate access and egress to the area, potentially as part of an emergency access and exit from that new development. It could be made to work that that an access could be built off of Stonebridge Way, I believe, and or farther up. And Mr. Pavlov seems to have a map there, but anyway. So that's a concern as well. The preferred option has been basically identified by the applicant as too expensive. So their offer of $1 million to partly construct or to go towards the construction of that access and egress wouldn't cover the cost, and the district would be, if that was constructed according to, and if we followed the application, that access or egress would cost between $1.685 million and $2.5 million. Those were rough estimates in 2021. So that would leave that burden to be carried by the taxpayer. Negotiation of land access is problematic for us because the applicant would like us to negotiate that land for them. Staff would then be doing work specifically on behalf of that applicant, which could be argued that would contravene section 25 of the community charter by providing an assistance to business, which is prohibited by that section of the charter. The application to the Agricultural Land Commission would be along the same lines. If the District of Sauk were to do it and allocate resources to that, it might also constitute an assistance to business. Our recommendation, therefore, is that council direct staff to request that the developer of Sun River Estates provide a revised rezoning application that establishes an alternative emergency access route and or a secondary access, and bring that application back forward to council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for your presentation and for staff for your work that you've been doing on this. And just for members of the public, this is here because the applicant is asked to approach council so directly, and everyone has the opportunity, as you saw in the delegation earlier, to do so. So that's why it's here without a staff recommendation. Is the applicant here tonight? A representative for the applicants? Okay, would you like to come forward and speak to council and explain why this is here? Okay, thank you. So open up to questions from members of council. Who would like to go? Counselor Bateman.
Yep. I did have a number of questions for the applicant. However, I will address to you, to staff. Where shall I begin? How about traffic impacts? So this traffic impact study states, as we've heard twice tonight, 104 trips during AM and 139 trips in the PM. Now, the CRD statistics show that the average Souk household has 1.9 cars per household. So I'm curious about these traffic impact assessments. It seems low to me. I'll put it that way.
So
That's not a question.
no, but let me just, can I take that and I'll come back to you? So I had that as well. Because when was that? Because 2020, many people were still working at home. So depending on where you were in the COVID cycle, as many people have moved recently and are wondering where all the traffic came from, it's because people were not commuting and were working from home or attending school virtually, and all of that, as we all remember and try not to think about too much. So that might explain. I don't know if staff has an answer of when that study was done, but perhaps I think it's reasonable as to why that number was low, depending on the timing.
Next question might be, okay, this emergency route perhaps is not identified in the transportation master plan. However, we did receive the evacuation route planning final report in November 2020. And it stated, quote unquote, a very small section on the need for alternative routes, emergency routes out by the Souk Hangar property in East Souk and in Souk Point, but also here in Sun River, the mention of quote unquote bulldoze off Driftwood Place across the Dimamill Creek to Helgeson Road. So is that the basis of this? I guess this would be for the applicant. Were they aware of this route, or when you met with the applicant, Mr. Powell, was that discussed at that point?
The specifics of the connection point into Sun River weren't discussed in great detail. The purpose of the site visit in April of last year was to determine the Helgeson property, what the viability was to actually consider using ALR land to create a connection point from Helgeson into Sun River. Once the fire chief and myself visited the Helgeson property, the developer invited us to go into Sun River over to the Stonewood location and just to examine it from that point, just to see the distance from the termination of that road to the property boundary of the Helgeson property. In terms of formalizing that as the desired connection point, that was never determined. That was just the closest point to the Helgeson property. There's other locations that could be considered, but that hasn't been further analyzed at this point. And ultimately, what's contained in this letter in the agenda is been the approach of the applicant to date. So there really hasn't been further discussion undertaken with staff to look at those additional connection points.
Can I come back to you,
Yeah.
Counselor Bateman, and then give
Yeah,
other counselors an
absolutely. Thank you.
opportunity?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beddoes?
To your worship, to staff. Yeah, well, that's good. Okay, anyways, the my concern is there's been some question about the legality of some of the requests. Are we seeking a legal opinion?
I think what our staff expertise knows this, like we cannot take on this work on behalf of a developer.
Okay, I wasn't quite clear whether that was just because there's a lot of maze and I wanted something more definitive, yes or no. If we can't do it, then we can't do it. Simple as that. So not to be considered.
Yeah, we can't assist business. And in
Okay,
this case,
that's fine.
taking this on is, I think if council wished to proceed this, it would likely trigger then, if we advanced this ask, then it would trigger a reaction and we would get an implication report that would say, okay, what you're doing here contravenes section, blah, blah,
Thank
blah. Are you sure you want to continue, council? So that's where we haven't.
I wanted
spent
some
money
clarity
it.
on that.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me whether it was contravening that act or could. So it sounds to me like staff has done their homework and it would be a contravening of the act if we went along those ways.
Would you like to add, Mr. Schaefer?
No, that's the essence of it, your worship, that section 25 provides an absolute prohibition against assisting business. The only exception to that would be if there was a partner, if the district entered into a partnership that would be mutually beneficial. And partnerships are long negotiations that have to provide, I would think, tangible benefits to both the district and the applicant. So just simply going out and doing the work on behalf of any applicant would be problematic.
Anything further, Councillor Battles?
No, that'll do for now.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I was curious about DCCs on this. Oh, sorry. I'll just explain a bit further. Sun River Development is, built out quite a lot in that area, and I'm sure that the district collected a lot in the way of DCCs for various purposes from Sun River Development. There's no doubt that the people in Sun River are one of the major reasons that we actually need a new egress. I'm curious as to why we wouldn't have monies in DCCs to contribute towards this sort of thing. Was it not collected? Is that not part of what DCCs do? Maybe I just misunderstand. So through your worship. Or to your worship.
It's a question I'd have to discuss with Mr. Paulo and Mr. Carter, unless one of them wants to lean in now. I don't have the answer to that.
Mr. Paulo?
Based on the projects that have been identified in the development cost charges bylaw, this specific area doesn't have a identified project that I'm aware of where those DCC dollar amounts could be attributed to. So in those instances, that's when we require the developer who's bringing forward an application, provide for the necessary infrastructure as the cost of development for their application. Unless we have a DCC project on the books, which can specifically speak to where that work is going to be completed and the specific dollar amount for that project. It's completely borne by the developer to provide for that. And so that's one of these instances. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a fair statement. Development cost charges, those projects are ultimately going to benefit the whole town. DCC project in the Sun River area would be mostly beneficial just for that area. Therefore, it wouldn't be included as a major DCC project. You'll notice all the DCC transportation projects are your main corridors, your arterials, your arterials and collectors that are through town center that are mostly seeing benefit from the majority of town.
For clarification, I'm curious. If this project was actually identified in the transportation master plan, then it might apply. I'm just trying to understand how this works a little bit better. Was that a fair assessment or? Through your worship?
It was identified as a priority in the transportation master plan, but it was not.
Perfect. That's further question. I have a further question. Different question is or
Go ahead and then.
Okay. I'm curious about the ask on the part of the developer. Is it the norm on the part of any other local government to negotiate with landowners on behalf of developers if there's a mutual benefit? Or is that ever done?
I won't say never, your worship. However, it's not something that I have seen done. It would be unusual to take on that kind of negotiation with a third party on behalf of a developer who wants to develop a piece of property within the district. But as I say, I wouldn't say it never happens. It's just not within my experience.
Thank you very much. That's all for now.
Councillor Pearson?
Yes, thank you. And to you, my questions come along on the heels of Councillor St. Pierre's. The transportation master plan, we've got 715 houses on a one-way in, one-way out road currently. It seems to me there's a bit of a miss there. If our transportation master plan hasn't looked at a second egress in and out of there. So I'm just kind of thinking to myself is that should be somewhere identified that already we should be working towards a second in and out of Sun River. Although we've got two bridges across one river, we still only have one road on either side of that. And it has choked off a few times with trees and things like that coming down. So from a safety point of view, I would feel a lot better if it was identified, back to you, sorry, as somewhere on the transportation master plan. but I'm not sure that's going to get us to this development. And the second question I have is that this looks like a recommendation from staff that council direct staff to request the developer of Sun River to provide a revised zoning application that established an alternative emergency access route. Alternative emergency access route. I'd rather see that look at a permanent in and out, because that's what we're really talking about here. So it's a point. I'm not sure how I'm gonna.
Well, we can take that when we actually get to making a motion. Just right now, I'd like to just focus on any questions. And
Yep,
so
no.
we can consider that as the item comes forward.
I made a comment. I didn't actually ask a question.
That's fine.
you.
Counselor Lajeunesse?
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess the question I have is if, what are the chances of getting a right of way out of land reserve? Like if the property owner would not be able to do that, but if the district were to work with the developer to define a route and then go to the land commission and say, we need this right of way for a road system, what are the chances of that happening?
So that scenario was discussed with the applicant. I followed through with the Agricultural Land Commission to understand what would the application process look like, what would be the requirements. And it was conveyed to me that there was two different streams that could be undertaken. One initiated by the District of Sauk, or in this instance, because it would be serving a transportation utility purpose, that they could apply under that stream as the private developer to undertake that process. So I had indicated this to the applicant that they could proceed now with this type of application and see how far they could get with the Agricultural Land Commission. Based on the letter that has been submitted from the applicant, they've chosen the alternative option, which is to have the district pursue some form of application to get that connection made. So it's a possibility, but certainly that would be additional resources required of the district to undertake this application. And knowing that the applicant can also undertake it themselves, that was what staff's first comment to the applicant was, is to pursue this route as far as they could with the Agricultural Land Commission.
Okay, Counselor McMath, any questions? Then I'll go back to Counselor Bateman.
Right now, there's a gated emergency route.
No,
There's nothing.
it's one way in and one way out.
So from like a fire perspective, with a few years back, we had that atmospheric flooding. And so the water is like up to that bridge there. So there's Pasco, there's Helgeson. What is the fire department's preference for secondary entrance and exit?
I don't have that answer. I think that's why everyone is looking at the stub that was on Driftwood Drive, or what's known as Driftwood Place, because when you drive by it, it looks like a road to somewhere. It's done that way. Mr. Schaefer?
I think the preference of the district at this time, if we were to pursue a second route in and out, it would be Pasco Road. It wouldn't be an emergency route. But the developer has, in an effort to work with the developer and try to have something happen. We've said, if you can make this happen, that'll be acceptable. If you can make this alternate route happen, that would be accessible or acceptable. But for the district to do the applications would be problematic, I think, and in fact, the more I think about it at this point, it would, Ms. Machado also points out that potentially, if that was done before the rezoning was undertaken, council would then be presented with having already done work to support a project, would then be asked to rezone a property that they were seen to support beforehand. It would add a perception of bias potentially to the rezoning process, because it would be, I think, unwise for the district to rezone that chunk of land without having that access secured first. So if we were to undertake that work to secure the access, that would that could add a perception of bias to the rezoning, which would happen afterwards.
And then just to follow up, so if the applicant wishes to pursue themselves, it's going to come here first.
Well, they would apply and follow that process. Our staff would be notified at the same time. Whenever anyone applies to the ALC, that we get notified in that place, and then it would just run the course with the ALC.
But it has to come here first. So for us to be like, that seems murky to me. So if we don't want that, it could be seen that that's why we decline it.
Can I
Or
get
we-
clarity on that process? Because I'm not sure I understand it the same way.
I can't recall the entire full name, but it's something along the lines of a transportation utility corridor application. There's a number of different uses that can be applied for. And so the planner at the Agricultural Land Commission said the applicant could come forward, make an application through that process. Staff aren't familiar with how that process is undertaken. It's not typically a process that most planning departments have to process. So it would be new for us to understand as well. Is this something that can be entirely dealt with between the applicant and the ALC processes, or if this is something that comes through our department and then we have to go through a review and ultimately come forward to council for any form of approvals. So that, because that conversation hasn't progressed that far with the applicant, we haven't undertaken further full process reviews with the ALC to understand the full extent, other than there are two streams, one where the district undertakes as the applicant, or one where the applicant undertakes it as the applicant.
Okay. Counselor Bateman, other questions?
Yeah, I do have other questions. However, in the absence of the applicant, and they're a bit too finely detailed, and not appropriate for staff, or staff wouldn't necessarily know, but I did have one question related to housing needs. So the applicant refers to the housing needs report. And I guess my question in overall terms of us meeting our housing need projections, because the draft OCP makes it very clear that we need 1,813 additional residential units by 2030. And while we're no Langford, I think we are in fact we're on track to deliver these housing numbers. So are we in fact on track, behind or ahead of projections? That's my question.
Okay. Mr. Paulo?
With the previous year, we were nearly approaching to be entirely on track. As you had referenced, Langford was about double what their expected supply requirements were. We were above 90%, I believe it was, for what our supply needs were. So we are very healthy in that regard. I think we were either the second or third in terms of the CRD municipalities in reaching those projections. So I anticipate with a lot of the other high density developments that we have ongoing within our town center area, which is specifically the area where we anticipate the bulk of our growth to proceed over the next decade, that we'll be able to maintain a healthy course towards being on track with those future year-over-year demands for housing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Counselor St. Pierre?
Further question with regards to the development happening in Sun River in general. We've had correspondence that reference the OCP basically stating that this was not meant to be one of our growth areas. Having said that, we already have a large amount of population in Sun River. There's a need for amenities, and there's still an ongoing need to increase the number of housing units, as the housing needs assessment has pointed out. But a lot of our needs revolve around rentals, and specifically multifamily, different types of density. I think the applicant referenced smaller lots, duplexes, various other possibilities. And I know that in River's Edge, they used a very interesting model to provide somewhat more affordable housing. I was curious, and obviously the developer is not here to answer these questions, but whether or not staff has actually worked with the developer or discussed with the developer, despite the fact that the OCP has pointed as a growth area, how to actually potentially introduce density and affordability into that area. And whether or not that's even a possibility, given the state of the OCP at this point in time. Because I think we need commercial and higher density in what amounts to a small village with enough people to be a village.
Thoughts, Mr. Paulo?
Perhaps just for clarity, so it was the question seeking to determine if there was opportunity to provide more density within a smaller area within Sun River? Was that?
Can you clarify?
I'm curious as to whether or not the OCP as it stands and whether or not the zoning as it stands or future zoning amendments could allow Sun River to be a more complete neighborhood with more amenities, therefore requiring less infrastructure to get in and out of, more employment locally, more services and amenities locally, or whether or not right now our zoning and OCP are essentially a straitjacket, keeping it as a bedroom community.
In terms of the draft OCP, I don't believe much would change than what's already there now in terms of being a lower density community with neighborhood commercial. One proposed difference may be the increase in density to the 70 units per hectare for the community residential area. So that could be one consideration, but overall, any further development beyond what's already proposed as the maximum density for zoning there right now presents a concern for transportation, specifically emergency management. So having more commercial in that area, densifying it, there will still be the concerns that there's only one access in and one access out. And as the transportation master plan indicates, we need to look at having a secondary access route if we are going to further densify that area.
Thank you for that answer. And that makes perfect sense. The reason I'm asking this question as well is simply that I'm hoping that given the cost should not be borne by the taxpayers for the exit, and if that additional density was to be provided to a developer, maybe a better business case could be made for them to bear those costs if there was a return on investment. So I'm wondering whether or not our OCP would even allow that kind of a consideration.
That might be a possibility with the OCP in conjunction with the technical studies that would have to support that increased density.
Thank you.
You're referring to the top area, though. That is a wildfire buffer area. I full disclosure, I live in the neighborhood, and within the first year of moving in, there was a fire up in that hill there. And when we did the wildfire training ops exercise back pre-COVID, it was an area that we knew of. So adding significant density, then we would have to consider what fire services, which is why I think there has been a lot set aside as potential fire service outlet to support that area. But as you know, it all costs money. So we know now what the new attack truck, just going through that process costs and the impact there. So I think there are, as Mr. Paulo said, a lot of technical work there. I don't have much in the way of questions because the applicant is not available to speak to them, but part of it is just one technical piece in your report that you put in here in the mapping. You have the school site and the district site. Those are incorrect. You have them wrong on the map. The school site is closer to Phillips Road. The Souk lot is inwards, which is why the sport box is located where it is. Otherwise, we would have located it on our property and not on the SD 62 property. So that's just a correction that needs to be made. In the report, it lists out that this would be first-time homeowners, families, and seniors. And I appreciate that the subdivision certainly has attracted and provided housing for those demographics over the years. The challenge, though, is all of those demographics need amenities. We heard that a bit earlier. I recognize that there's a childcare center that is there. The families are grateful for it, but there's no before and after school care. There's none available in Souk. So anyone with a child is driving wherever they can, which would attribute to the various trips. My own child goes all the way to the end of Grant Road because there's nothing closer. Amenities, there has been a playground put in for toddlers. That's what it was called. It does nothing to service children 7 and older, thereabouts. Families are also looking for swim lessons, all sorts of amenity features of Sea Park, of which are oversubscribed and not available often, and access to transit. Transit as it runs is Highway 14. There is community bus service, but the transit plan for Sooke is now complete and will not be revisited for at least 10 years down the road. So it's done, it's approved by the commission, is what we have. Which means, and transit is still trying to recover from COVID. So the service is not running as it should. We did see in our transit plan a request to have more community bus services run through Sun River and so forth to East Sooke and the like. It's just getting the service back and operational. So right now, the community bus that comes through Sun River runs twice a day, and that is all, and not on weekends, not on stats, and does not service. So people generally, if they can't make the timing work, will be walking to Highway 14 to catch a bus there. It's at least 25 minutes, maybe one way, depending if you have children or what you're carrying, probably half an hour walking back. It's uphill the whole way. School buses are in high demand and non-existent to all families. And so everyone, the point I'm trying to make is everyone will need to require another vehicle to drive to get to where they need to be, whether that's getting to the park and ride safely and so forth. An earlier speaker talked about the egress out of Sun River Way. It is tight to turn out. So often the cars looking to turn right onto Phillips are waiting until the incoming turns so that you don't swing out and everyone just waits. It's tight there for whatever reason. On Sun River Way, we heard years ago about the concerns of speeding, which is why council reduced the speed limit at that time to 40 kilometers because of the speeding, in hopes to slow it down, mainly for the lower phase and the crosswalks. And because folks had difficult turning out of Popular as well as Demomuel Creek lower down. I'll also add that a mailbox, another resident indicated in the past that the mailboxes located there have no turn in. So they're right on Sun River Way. So anyone checking mail stops there, which means everybody has to drive around all the time because there is no way to move off the road. In later years, as you go up Sun River Way and approach the hill as it intersects with Driftwood, you may notice on one side or both sides now there's no parking there. And that's because of the speeding. Residents, I think, were parking on the street to try to slow traffic down. The dangerous part is when the sun sets, it's nearly impossible to see. So the no parking went in to eliminate, because I think there were some fender benders and it's impossible to see depending on the time of day, the year, whatever is what's coming down the hill. Sun River Way has sidewalks only on one side of the road. So depending on where you are, you're forced to cross. And as we've heard from earlier speakers, not everyone slows down or can see them. The street lights don't line up in the lower phase with the crosswalk. Some of them are pitch black at night, so you cannot see. You have to just look and see and make sure that nobody's in the crosswalk because the visibility is poor. So in part of this, I fully support our staff recommendation. The other piece is capacity. We have heard, and as the public knows, we are doing our best to get on top of development approvals. Our CAO gave some insight on that earlier. Our staff just don't have the ability to work for one developer. They have to work in the interests of all of Sooke, which means our day-to-day operations would slow down while this became a priority. And also it just contravenes our ability to, we cannot assist business in this. The last time the district entered into a private public partnership was for the Prestige and the boat launch, because the boat launch was meant to be a community amenity. So there's just more work that is needed here in terms of the concern of the residents on Stonewood Place. It is a cul-de-sac with no sidewalks and is busy. The area in question behind, it looks like a cul-de-sac. There's a retaining pool, pond there, and then of a bit of a slope into a heavily forest area of significant trees and habitat as noted. So it's just, that's where I think there was some upset. I knew about it because residents reached out to me when everyone was there looking at it and wondering why it hasn't been considered for Driftwood Place when there is a stub of a road there. naturally, I think that if we were going to make a decision, I don't feel it's ready for tonight to connect Sun River to Pasco. We need to talk to all of the community about that and also consult with Sun River. Like, this dramatically changes. If there was a permanent road and that's what council wanted to see, this dramatically alters the Sun River landscape, because you would have traffic from Otter Point going down Pasco into Sun River and cutting out that way. So everything needs to be, it impacts everything. And then again, what about the downstream impact? 4 crosswalks, a hill, you naturally pick up speed all the way to that stop sign. It just happens. So all of that needs to be taken into consideration. I'm just throwing that out there. And then we're still stuck with Demaumiel Creek, which is one bridge, then connecting to another bridge. I think if we were going to work on an egress, what does another bridge over the river look like? Because even if all of this was upgraded and people are evacuating out of Pasco, when our Sooke River Bridge is out, we're all still stuck. So it's part of a bigger plan here on terms of where we need to put our energy, because it still comes down to one small bridge and one big bridge and no other way out. And for those of you that lived in Sooke in 2006, will know what an impact it is when that bridge, Sooke Road Bridge, is closed and what it does to a community. So that's an ongoing conversation that we have to have. I don't really have any questions. I just feel this is premature here for this to come forward. I recognize that anyone has the ability to approach council, but for us to make a decision like this, to put 140, I'll also raise the fact that Sun River residents on title have a building scheme that says things like no clotheslines, that has things like trailers or RVs need to be screened from the road, and a whole bunch of other criteria. The paint color has to be within a certain palette and the like. We've learned that this is not really enforceable by our bylaw. It requires all the residents to basically gather up and sue the other residents, which doesn't happen because we're likely all in breach of it some way or another. So if you're making this change, my point to this is that if you're, as a landowner, making a change, I think you're duty bound to consult with everybody in the subdivision properly to say that this is what you're doing, because you're changing the whole neighborhood. It's not just somebody leaving a trailer in their front yard. You're making a dramatic change to the scale and the nature of this particular community. And I think that's why, while there may have been community open houses, I never went to one. I don't know when it was. And certainly if it was in COVID, that would be a reason why. The traffic studies, I think, as well, is another, but it needs more work. And I just can't support our staff doing work on behalf of a developer, because every other person waiting in the queue will ask for the same level of service that we are not in a place legally to provide, nor have the capacity to provide. And I'll leave it at that. Councillor St. Pierre.
In light of your comments, I'd like to move the recommendation from staff.
Okay, so you are removing then that council directs staff to request the developer of Sun River Estates provide a revised rezoning application that establishes an alternative emergency access route and or secondary access. Okay, that's moved. Is there a seconder? I'll second that discussion. Seconded for discussion. So to motivate, Councillor St. Pierre.
I think that it's clear that we actually do need a secondary route some point, and I trust that our staff actually has the expertise to assist the developer, hopefully in finding a better way. My own particular concern continues to be with actually making Sun River a more complete neighborhood. I think it's a joke to actually talk about reducing our emissions when you can't buy a loaf of bread in Sun River, when you can't actually get someone to gymnastics unless you drive them to Langford. So we need more amenities in Sun River. We need commercial amenities. We need sports amenities. We need amenities for kids and so on and so forth. I think all of this has to be considered as our staff works with developers to actually provide for the community. And I trust our staff to take that forward.
Comments as a seconder?
Well, the comments would be, I would assume that if we move this forward, this recommendation, that Sun River would come back in a formal rezoning process where we would receive it for first reading. And if we were to approve the first and second readings, we would have a public hearing and this hall would be filled with Sun River residents. and we'd have the equivalent of an open house at that time. Is that in fact how this process would proceed? Through you to you?
The only caveat is I think other members of the community would also speak and ask why you're, just to counter back, densifying an area. You'll have others that'll say, is this in keeping with the OCP to intensify this area and not a heavily serviced area? Others that are concerned about our GHG's mission have referenced the impact of transportation and housing. So how are we meeting our objectives with this? Like, it's not just going to be an open house, but I imagine that's what it would be. Something would come forward. Should staff have the support for second reading? And if it passes, it would move to a public hearing. Is that correct? But I would just say there would be more than Sun River residents present, I would think.
Yeah.
Isuk spoke today, right?
Yeah, yes, so this is an active application, and based on the referral comments that have been given back to the applicant, staff were not in support of their application to move forward to first reading. So the objective of the applicant is to seek enough information so that they can proceed with making the necessary revisions to their application, that they could proceed with staff support. We've not been able to get to that point. So based on the outcome of tonight's meeting, the applicant will need to consider how they want to proceed with their application, and it may come before council with or without staff support in future at first reading.
So the applicant would have then the right to bring this forward regardless of what we say tonight, if they choose to revisit this rezoning application and take into account. So I'd just like to thank the applicant for actually giving us this opportunity to have a conversation before the process gets too far down the road. As you know, we had the West Urban situation here not so recently, quite recently, I mean, and that was where we were asking, being able to share for the first time. So thank you for that. And I'm motivating. Yeah, my final comment is, you know, we talk about gated emergency routes and evacuation routes, and we can also talk about active transportation corridors. If they're gated, then we have something that becomes a great community asset. Also knowing that Helgeson farm belt is in fact one of our great treasures for the future generations seated in these empty chairs. That's it.
That's fair. Other speakers? Councillor Pearson.
Yes, I think that I'm comfortable enough to vote in favor of this recommendation by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman because of the discussion around the secondary access. Hearing what the public said, if this was to go ahead, their concerns about everybody roaring in and out on one road. I look at the map and I looked at all the maps on there. I'd like to see something connecting to Helgeson. I really don't think that Pasco Road would be a viable connection for people. I think that coming to our downtown and getting access down there would be better. But because I think that although it would provide emergency relief, I don't think people are going to take shortcuts going out Pasco Road to go back. It'll still put additional pressure. So I'll be supporting the motion, but I also will be supporting a second access in and out of Sun River because I think it's overdue.
Councillor Beddoes and Lajeunesse, can you turn off your microphone now?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this motion as well. I did have some problems with an emergency access in regards to secondary access, but staff will be looking at both of those. I too feel that Helgeson would be a better fit. I don't like going through agricultural land, but sometimes if that has to be, it has to be. To me, it's important that we do have connectivity through our streets. The transportation master plan, although not a perfect document, was one that we agreed to follow. So I would be supporting this request that the developer come back with a better presentation.
Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I guess I'm old enough to remember when Sun River didn't exist. And the developer has done a fabulous job of creating another neighborhood within Souk. And I would like to see it continue. And I think housing is a huge issue, not just in Souk, but all over the continent. But we do need to have more access through there. And I would like to see the applicant work with staff to come up with a solution to that secondary access, because the way Souk has developed over the years, we have all these roads that are one way in, one way out. And I would like to see better connectivity within our road network. And so I will support this motion as well.
Councillor McMath, any comments? Okay, for myself, I appreciate the intent of what this motion is doing. Because I do agree that an emergency access route out is important. A second access is also important. But I'm not going to vote in favor of this. I think this is a given and something that we really shouldn't need to give direction to staff for. It should just be something that should come forward automatically with the application. I read through the minutes of when this was approved back in the day, and it was a concern then that if you put this here, it's going to block off connectivity. So it's nothing new, and the subdivision went ahead as it is. I'm proud to be there. Don't get me wrong. I love the community. I love the neighborhood. I like almost all of my neighbors. Nothing, well, life isn't perfect. They probably don't all like me too, right? So anyway, there's been different items done. We have worked together over the years, but it's been the district and the residents that have brought things forward. The school site, when it was allocated, was not an appropriate location. So brought forward by a petition of the residents back in the day, the school site moved into an area that perhaps might be more buildable with safe egress for buses off of Phillips Road. Then there was the piece around playing fields, of which we did get a land contribution, but thankfully we got a grant, because without that grant, we never would have been able to achieve that sport box. The amount of digging that we had to do in the soils to make the land suitable, it just wasn't enough. Yes, there's still some funding available for that particular parcel, but it just wasn't enough. Without the grant, never would have happened. In terms of amenities, like there needs to be more located just to service those that are living there now. There needs to be more safety improvements for the roadway as it exists now, not later. There's easy things. I know some residents have asked what happened to the Sun River sign. It got consumed by carpenter ants and it's gone. And there's no desire to replace that. And it did sort of give residents a sense of place. That would be something now the district through general funding would need to find to do. And that's basically what I was told. In terms of us going to the province to then advocate for X, Y, and Z is an exhausting piece. I've been doing it for healthcare for over a decade. It's a slow, long, drawn out process. So I just feel that this should have been already given. I know that our staff are on it, and maybe it's just to reinform that particular decision. But it's just this along with many other things. So I'm not supporting this, not because I don't disagree with it. It's just to service the needs of the community now. There shouldn't be an access based on adding more in the future. This should have happened 10 years ago, after that fire occurred in that hill, after the windstorm that knocked out most of Phillips Road downwards, after the flooding events that have closed off Phillips Road, not just from the atmospheric rivers, but in other years past. It's nothing new, and the residents there are mindful of that time and time again. And it shouldn't be based on rezoning. It should be something that should be done now. We've been amenable to making changes to make, as we heard, oh, this will do this and this will do that. We've dramatically already altered the scale of that neighborhood from what it was first designed to be. And I get things change over time. And I was in support of those things as they came along. But now I recognize the impact that that has had on the livability. And I still want to walk around this neighborhood proudly. So I'm not in favor of this. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please. And opposed is Mayor Tate, so it's carried. And Yes, and on that note, we're going to take a health break because I'm certain some of those seated in the audience would probably want to leave. Though you're more than welcome to stay with us until the end. We love having people in the galleries, so please don't mean that you have to leave because we like to have you. But otherwise, we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, everyone, that's time. We'll get on with our meeting here. So we're on our bylaw section, item 10. So item 10.1 is the municipal ticket information amendment bylaw. So there is a report here for staff. Query from the public, but I'll turn it over just if you could take us through this report and why it's here.
Thank you, Your Worship. The intent of the bylaw that's in front of you is really just a housekeeping issue. There's 4 bylaws that have been brought forward since we created the MTI bylaw that have been amended and have had sections either removed or added in that has changed the numbering of those sections. So those are all referred to in the MTI bylaw. So it's really just to bring those 2 bylaws in, or those 5 bylaws into alignment with each other.
Okay, other questions from members of council? Okay, go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
I'd just like to follow up on, through your worship, I'd like to follow up on the question from the public, which is with regards to road access. I'm not necessarily sure that an answer is present at this point in time, but I'm curious about blocking off access to a road, and if there've been multiple complaints, why is this allowed to continue?
Any response?
Through your work to you, Madam Chair. I would need more information about what is actually being discussed. I have a feeling I know what it is, but without any more detail, I couldn't provide a specific response.
Go ahead. Okay. So the recommendation here is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as municipal ticket information amendment bylaw number 874-836-01-2023. Moved by Councillor Beto, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Call a question, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Another thought, Mr. Martin, is feel free to write to council@souk.ca if you like, and that might just satisfy what Councillor St. Pierre is asking for, perhaps. Just gonna shout that out there. Go ahead.
If I receive the appropriate correspondence, we can take it up with staff and see what can be done. Email me. Us, all of us.
It's council@souk.ca.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, info@souk.ca. Right, yes. Info@souk.ca. Okay. All right, I'll call it. Did I call the question on this? Yes, I did. Okay, so 10.3, please, is give me a break. Oh, right. Sorry. Right, 10.2, revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw. So as everyone has already been here a term or 2 now, I'm sure you all know what this is, about how we do this every year. So and hope we, in case we need it and usually don't and haven't yet. Is that enough? You probably all read the report in detail, so. All right, so that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 877-2023. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. All those in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. Moving on to 10.3, traffic and highways regulation amendment bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. This one is also very much a housekeeping item. Our current traffic bylaw has the highway use permit attached as an appendix. And we're suggesting that that be removed, which is a very typical process, so that staff has the ability to amend that permit template without the need to actually amend the bylaw. So just to make it more usable as over time.
Recommendation is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as traffic and highways regulation amendment bylaw number 876-67-06-2023. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Got it. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, I
Go ahead.
To you, we talked a little bit about it in our strategic planning or somewhere along the way in the last little while. It would be helpful for me to see the before and after of these bylaws, and this one not particularly, so that I could check the wording out, just so I can get an understanding of what it was. We talked as a group, because then, because I get it, and, it's housekeeping, right? And then all of a sudden, so and the other point of question I have is, is there any, when we add these bylaws, in the past, we used to have to make a motion to rescind the former bylaw. Are we still doing that?
No, these are just sorry. Your
Just
worship.
amendment to
These
the-
are amendments.
Yeah.
If it was to replace, then we would repeal the old one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, call a question, all in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next up is new business. There is a notice of motion first off from Councillor St. Pierre with a request, just given the timing, to waive notice. So on the screen, okay, so the first one would be that council waive the requirements for notice under section 36 of the council procedural bylaw to consider the motion related to the 2023 Climate Connect event. That's moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So now we're on the notice of motion itself. So this will be by Councillor St. Pierre, and that would be that council authorized Councillor St. Pierre to attend the Climate Connect 2023 event in Nanaimo, with the expenses being covered from council to contingency. So as you're noticed, that's what you're moving. We would need a seconder by Councillor McMath. And now to speak to it, Councillor St. Pierre and Councillor Pearson, please turn off the microphone.
I will be brief. I was informed about the Climate Connect event through my membership with AVIC as a director at large some little time ago. It looks as if we're doing excellent work in terms of connecting health resources to climate along with equity. And I'm really interested to see what further work is being done in terms of actually connecting to what local government can actually do. So that's why I'm interested in attending the event, and I'm hoping for your support.
Okay, so this is coming up on March the 7th and 8th. So that's where the timing is. So, and that's why we're here. So there would be per diem, hotel, and the registration. Or are you attending virtually?
The registration is free.
Okay.
And I've already registered.
Okay, so it's just the per diem and accommodation. Okay. All right, my screen went blank. So that's moved and seconded. So it's on the floor. Any questions? Councillor Bateman, bend the microphone.
The one question I have, and it relates to my own attendance at these events, is there's so much information. And then we report out during the verbal report. And I'm wondering, maybe you can set the precedent of providing us with a short summary of some kind that can go into the public record.
Glad to.
Make best efforts.
Starter for the rest of us. Thank you.
Best efforts. Okay, no, I'm in support of you attending this and bringing back some good information. So I'll call the question. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so there's another one that's come up, and this will be by myself as well, and I can't see the screen. So I think the first part would be to waive notice. Is this screen? Mine's not working. Okay, so. And that would be that council waive the requirements. Oh yeah, for a notice under section 36 of the council procedural bylaw to consider the motion related to the 2023 Housing Summit. Moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse to waive notice. All those in favor of waiving notice? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is the motion itself, and that would be that council approve Mayor Maya Tate attendance, as well as, we'll add that later. We'll start with me, attendance at the UBCM Province-wide Housing Summit on April 4th to 5th, 2023, and authorize the associated expenses to be taken from council contingency. I do want to just, I can't speak, it needs to be seconded. Counselor McMath is seconding. Now I'll motivate. So what I would like to do though is also open this up to other members of council who are available to attend. So the UBCM recognizes that the housing crisis, the impact on local governments is extremely significant, and waiting until the September AGM is just too far out. The other challenge is that, as all of you who have been there know how busy UBCM gets, the conflict with resolutions, with ministerial appointments, and the ability to attend everything is just too much. So that's why they've decided, or the executive decided last year, to put a summit for housing in April. So it would be all local government elected officials as well as staff. The province is going to be participating fully as well. And so it's an opportunity to hear directly from the minister responsible, the premier, as well as the new advisor, on important things like the housing crisis, we know, homelessness and opioids, the immigration impact, also the development approval process and their expectations. And also when you hear things about the province potentially overriding local government zoning decisions, what does that all mean exactly? So that's why I feel that certainly if Mr. Paulo and others from staff are able to attend, I really hope and encourage you, but you have your own allowance to do that. It doesn't need to be us, but it's important that our experts are also at the table there. And also for us understanding as the decision makers on what is being proposed. So there will be a blend of both, obviously the province's elected body and their staff, as well as local government elected officials and staff. I expect it's going to draw large numbers, and that's why when the hotel block opens up, it's important to reserve and to make travel duties. So that's why, even though we would have time in March, I think that it's the registration, as I know, is going to happen soon. It'll likely get really busy, or at least I hope it does, in communities that are either dealing with growth or challenges, and all of that in particular. And also with cabinet shuffles is really, what is the current mandate now? It's we were all focused on one, and then there was a change, and there's a lot new. So just hearing directly from the province and the local government role, I certainly do wish to attend this, and I certainly hope that others can also attend. So we'll just, so I don't get confused. So I'm just trying to think here on whether or not to amend this and to add in other people as an amendment. Or should it just be a second motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would suggest you just pass this one. I have it ready to cut and paste and add other council members in for a new motion.
Okay, so yeah, so why don't we do that, and then we'll go on and then see who else can attend. Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. It feels weird voting for myself, but Tony did it. I'm just kidding. Okay, so on the next part, the forum will start at 8:30 in the morning. So what that means is that you would need to travel over the night before on April the 3rd. I think it's going to finish around 2 or something on the 5th. So time to travel back on the 5th, but it would require hotel stay on April the 3rd and 4th. And travel on the 3rd. We don't have a scheduled council meeting on that date because it's the first Monday. However, it is good to find time for that committee of the whole in the afternoon, just saying, or the morning. I don't know, but that's just something to throw out there. So I just like to see who would be available and able to go. Councillor Bettles can go.
Yeah, I'd be interested, but I do have to check with the powers to be.
Not the final decision maker here, but we may as well put you in there. Councillor Lajeunesse, Councillor St. Pierre, Councillor Bateman, Councillor Pearson, Councillor McMath, are you available? You got a lot of, one of us has to work. I know. Okay, so you're likely working in that time. Okay. It's going to be held at the Sheraton Wall Center. When UBCM sends out the compass or any correspondence, I recommend you jump on it right away. I have looked into this a bit. They do not do third-party authorization. So what that means is you'll need to secure your own hotel room with your own credit card in advance. So, and then submit for reimbursement because they won't accept third party. We cannot rely on our staff to book it. And then just determine how you're gonna get over there. I think we're all capable of figuring that out. Counselor St. Pierre, or I hope, maybe.
Quick question, when does it end on the 5th?
I think around 2 or 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that would be then that council approves Counselor Beddoes, Lajeunesse, Pearson, Bateman, and St. Pierre's attendance at the UBCM Province-wide Housing Summit on April 4th to 5th and authorizes the associated expenses to be taken from council contingency. Moved by Counselor McMath, seconded by Counselor St. Pierre. Any discussion on this? We all know what they're doing. If things change, Counselor McMath, please let us know. Counselor Beddoes, you're in there, so it's up to the boss. And your boss, so, and your boss?
Stop talking.
No, my boss is fine with it, I'm sure. I know. In fact, I talked to her earlier today. I just wanted to say, you know, it is important in light of the Sun River discussion tonight, for example. So there has been municipalities have been discussing the fact that perhaps if we do not greet applications like that with open arms, they will intervene and step in and ask us to do so. So I think it's important for all of us to really get the lay of the land as it's being shaped and contribute to that. And I will volunteer to write the report from this little meeting. So but you know, brief. I'll follow your template. You do the first. And Councillor McMath, it is work, by the way. In fact, it is.
That's not what I was inferring.
I know you weren't. I could call the question.
Counselor St. Pierre?
Just a very brief motivation on this one. It might be that people in the community will wonder, okay, if they're off to another conference, why is this important? Housing is definitely going to be one of the main things we're going to be dealing with on our strat plan, getting the tools, the information, the resources, the connections to actually really look at it in a fulsome way, knowing what the lay of the plan is going to be in terms of the province is going to be critically important in terms of actually advancing this particular item on our strategic plan. And I think that's, and I'm very pleased that so many of council is going there because it shows that we're really committed on that one.
Yeah. Who did that? Okay. All right, I think that's enough. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for your interest. Okay, item 12 is pulled the Good Food Network 12.1 Good Food Network Progress Report. This was requested for discussion by Councillor St. Pierre. Off you go.
This came as correspondence, and as it happens, CR Fair is offering also to do a presentation to council. I think that given that food security is still a part of our existing strat plan, and that I think we still need to be looking at issues like food security in terms of food policy council and like, that CR Fair would be an excellent presenter to basically get us jump started on this other item on our strat plan, or likely on our strat plan. And so, more than accepting for information, I would like to invite CR Fair to send a representative for a presentation to council.
The motion would be, so you have a question
Point
about
of
the
order.
motion?
Can't Counselor St. Pierre just email them and invite them? Like, do we need a motion?
Well, I think we have to receive this anyway, and so that's why he's just adding that motivation to make sure it happens, and then staff will follow up. So he's delegating. So I think, okay, so that council received the correspondence from the Capital Region Food and Agricultural Initiatives Roundtable dated February 7, 2023 for information, and invite the Good Food Network to provide a presentation to council at an upcoming committee of the whole. They'll fix the typo, okay? Is there a seconder for that? That was moved by, oh, Councillor Pearson already did. Okay, moved by St. Pierre, seconded by Pearson. Any further discussion? Councillor Bateman.
I'll just note that we're inviting the Agricultural Land Commission as well, so maybe the two can be combined for a special
food cow.
Food cow.
We'll see how that lands amongst our, if that can be arranged or not. I mean, staff will hear you, and if we can align them, then that would be great. make best efforts. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Verbal reports. Counselor Beddoes.
Turn the microphone on. Yes, to you, I attended along with others, the job volunteer fair. Very impressed with some of our local people there. I knew a good many of them, and they were offering mainly the volunteer side of things, but it's really good to see our community, and those are the volunteers that make our town work. Very happy with that. The other thing is at the Sea Park meeting, we had a report by staff about how things are ramping up after COVID. And with the addition of the gymnasium, they're just going gangbusters down there. And we're certainly getting our dollars worth out of that Sea Park group and all they offer. And they've been a great job of staffing up for the pool. And there was 2 service clubs that supplied funds to help the kids get their accreditation for the swimming pool. And that pays off for us in the long run. So it was a very good meeting. Everybody's looking forward to getting on with checking with the community what else we can do in the future. It's a good meeting.
Thank you, Counselor Beddoes. Counselor St. Pierre.
We all. Brief report. I 2 things of note. I attended the joint meeting between the school trustees and Sooke Council. Excellent meeting, excellent information, seeing what's going on at our local community school. Some of the programs which were taking place, and public sponsorships of apprenticeships, local. Exciting that some of our local businesses are going down and going into the task program and offering apprenticeships, and people getting employment right out of high school, and some of them starting even before the end of their high school careers directly into the trade. And Metal Task, I think, was the topic of the day. Very exciting. And the need for communities to start leveraging facilities like schools and not the silo approach that the school district and other organizations currently follow. So no, that was very, very good. And on Saturday, I attended the signing by Miss Alita Pierce for her latest book, History of Sooke. And it was well attended. I saw the mayor there. And going backtrack, sorry, to the school district, Mr. Bateman, our Councillor Bateman, represented the mayor at the school district joint school district council meeting and said some nice words on behalf of the Sooke district. So good. That's my report.
Thank you, Counselor Pearson. Counselor St. Pierre, then Lajeunesse.
Very briefly, attended the latest of the meetings of the ABICC. And the result is the fine brochure that you see in front of you all, inviting you all to come to the ABICC conference upcoming. Thompson Highway to present. It should be there'll be a focus on most of the issues, but especially emergency preparedness and the like. There's a strong focus on that sort of thing and on the health thing. So a lot of good information to be had.
Thank you.
Nanaimo.
Nanaimo. For AVIC, I
Not
think we're
Victoria again.
already registered. Counselor Lajeunesse.
Okay, I have notes. So January 25th, I attended a SIP sponsored presentation from Jean-Francois Perrault, who's one of Canada's leading economists. And he discussed the regular speculations about inflation, interest rates, what to expect. And the answer seems to be that we don't really know. Because the causes of our current predicament are different than anything we've experienced in the past with the war in Ukraine. Corporations are making record profits, and so we're in a bit of a different situation than what we have been historically. In our region, though, although we've seen a dip in real estate values, he doesn't expect the bottom to fall out of the market for a number of reasons, such as the fact that we have the best climate in the country, et cetera, as we all know. Our main issue is the fact that although those who can afford housing here will continue to migrate. Our service economy will suffer because service workers won't be able to afford to live here. In his opinion, the only solution, and it's an unpopular one, is that we need to take similar action to what Victoria has done with their missing middle housing plan. We need to densify our housing options and make it more affordable. On the same day, I attended a UDI online presentation with Mark Holland and some folks from Colliers, who echoed some of the same concerns and stressed that municipalities need to step up the pace with respect to development approvals. Attended the inaugural meeting of the CRD Arts Commission, where the new chair, Marianne Alto, indicated that she would like all participating municipalities to come up with key issues that they would like to see the commission address. So any thoughts would be appreciated prior to the next meeting. January 30th, attended the school trustees meeting, and I won't repeat all that Councillor Pearson said, but having worked at Camosun College with the college's South Island partnership, they're excellent people. I have two nephews that went through the program and we're working. Essentially, you start your apprenticeship in grade 11, and by the time you're 20 years old, you have your full journeyman ticket for trades. February 5th, attended the kickoff of the Wounded Warriors Run along with the mayor at the Legion. February 8th, attended the Sauk Region Historical Society board meeting, and they're working toward stepping up their use of MS Teams, as is the district. So there may be an opportunity for some collaboration and knowledge transfer in that endeavor. I attended the WorkLink sponsored career fair on the weekend. Very well attended event. And it was nonprofits as well as more career oriented organizations. And then attended the book signing Stories of Sauk at the museum with Alita Peers, and that's it. That's all I've done.
Thank you for all your work. Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. It's good to hear all that. So I attended a number of the same things as the rest of you. I did attend the Saunders Family Foundation Community Healthcare Workshop event, and that's interesting. You know, a collection of organizations recognize as does the rest of the province and the country, recognize we're dealing with a health crisis. The message is we can't keep pointing the finger at the province and the federal governments. We as communities must take an all hands on deck approach. So developers, municipalities, charitable organizations can work together to ensure that our communities can attract and retain healthcare professionals, especially in light of the fact that 15% of established physicians are retiring within the next 5 years. So the Saunders Family Foundation is developing a toolkit for how municipalities, developers, and nonprofits can work together to provide, say, as Councillor Lajeunesse mentioned with SIP, housing for these individuals to attract and retain them in the community. So that toolkit is being developed by the very same Mark Holland you mentioned earlier, and it will be brought forward in due course. And I left feeling really grateful for the Sauk Region Communities Health Network. The West Shore does not have such a health network, and we do. And they're doing great work for us, and also our primary healthcare working group led by the mayor. Again, Sauk is doing some good things already. Okay, I also attended the AGM of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee, and my chosen mayor, Marie-Therese Little, will chair the organization again, and the advocacy work on behalf of long-term stable funding for the Mobile Youth Services team continues. Colwood and Highlands have also now joined Sauk and Machosen in writing advocacy letters, and the CRD as a whole has also written this. So March 31st is the deadline to ensure that these frontline service workers combined with the police are on the streets working with kids in crisis. I attended the AGM of the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board, and the Nanaimo councillor Aaron Hammonds is now the board chair. So it's all systems go for 2023. And there's a request for proposals to install netting in our library on the ground floor parking level, because as I mentioned at the last meeting, birds are pecking away at the fireproofing up there. So they put out a request for proposals, and we'll see how that goes. There have been 3 council orientation meetings led by various members on the far side over there, and those have been fascinating, and full respect to your work and this binder we've been handed. 4 sessions so far, sorry. They're flying by. Okay, I can carry on here. Yes, the Milnes Landing trustees and Sooke Council, we plan to meet again before the end of the school year. So that's exciting. And yeah, there we are. Thank you.
Councillor McManus?
I went for a ride along with the Sooke RCMP detachment. It was very eye-opening. And this Wednesday, we have a CREST meeting, so we're going to review a strategic business and communications plans going forward, and we're getting an update on the towers, which during the ride along will have a significant impact on possible call increase now that there's going to be new reception generated. We also discussed the new builds going in and the amount of people and how service levels are going to change with that as well.
Thank you, Councillor McManus. Thank you, all of you. So a bit of an update here. Back in January, sort of a highlight was the Heartwood Learning Academy was my first school visit that came. So there was about 15 students that visited Municipal Hall and met with me. And some of the highlights for them that they shared was the design of the library and how safe and welcoming the library is. So the gender neutral washrooms, the area is designed with students in mind. They feel that they're not as, sometimes children feel like a small child at the big kid table, whereas this case, the furnishing is designed with youth and children in mind. They commented also on how safe it is for them to move around and to meet friends who go to different schools. So the sidewalks, the trails on Wadhams, on Church Road, the crossing lights, all of those things are encouraging active transportation, and it's become a hub where they gather after school to do their work. So I really thought that was important. And also that's something I ask when students visit is, how did you get here? Did you feel safe getting here? And what was your experience like? Because you're getting real user perspective there. And lots of interesting questions, and just the design, when we talk about what is an inclusive build look like, it helps to get that kind of intel. So that was excellent. I'd like to thank all of you. January was a bit of a chaotic month for me. It was added to the fire stats call volume, I think, just given the calls that came to my home. So thanks all of council as well as staff just for supporting me through all of those impacts on my family. Also your patience, your empathy, especially patience, because I was very frayed at times. And so I just really appreciate all of that. It means a great deal to me, as well as the compassion shown by the first responders, particularly our fire crew, as they were the first to arrive, and they were very good at settling me down and making sure that they didn't leave until I think I demonstrated that I was not a total spaz or something. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. On another note, just a few things that are happening. There is a vigil for the Ukraine occurring on February 24th at the legislature. It's at 6 p.m. I don't know that I can make it there, but just mindful, we're flying the flag. The war isn't over. It's coming on almost a year now. So what an intense time for those families impacted by all of this, and just the impact that war has on our whole global population. Like others, I was at the volunteer and employment event. Great to see that showcase of events happening there, as well as the book signing for sure. Councillor Lajeunesse and I were here to send off the Wounded Warriors on their relay run. So thank you, Chief, for leading the pack out. So that was great. We also saw Norm there driving the vehicle. So it was great show from Souk and a wonderful start to their event. The new chamber has a new board, so I was there for their swearing in ceremony, as well as our staff member Gail was there in attendance as well. So it was wonderful to see this new energy returning, as the chamber has always been doing, but really stepping up and excited about the year to come. You'll know at the CRD, there's strategic planning is nearing completion, so that'll all be coming forward into the public. You'll probably get the emails about it. A big advocacy push is the final push on the ENN corridor and getting some form of federal commitment, because that timeline is coming up. And for those that feel, well, why can't you just make it an active trail? That opportunity disappears with all of this. It cannot just be there and be a trail. It will then go through a whole piece on how that reversion, so it's an all or nothing piece. It's quite complicated. So the ENN did speak at the CRD and gave that information. So it's on WebEx available, but it's the final advocacy push there. Councillor Bateman and I were at the Carter and Everett Park dedication. I really want to acknowledge staff for the work that they did on the sign, the planning of the events with the family. It made a huge difference to the family and friends that were there, and they really talked about that a lot. So thank you for that. In terms of health, we actually just renamed ourselves the Souk Health Committee. So that's so exciting, isn't it? Like, I don't want to sit here and wordsmith a committee name. I don't have the patience. I know my shortcoming. I don't have patience for that. The Souk Health Committee, we're going with that. Terms of reference are being all sorted out. The big piece is we're waiting to see what approval on our maiden Souk proposal will be. So given that we know that our MLA is finishing up constituency work before his final departure, so I'm sort of hoping by March 31st, we'll get a formal outcome to that work. And again, it's been, I don't know, 12 years of pushing a big boulder up the hill. So I hope that we get somewhere with it. The Tumuk Treaty, for those of you that were at the event, you'll know, and for those members of the public interested, March 2nd at 4:30, the province is hosting an open house to talk about the Tumuk Treaty and its impact. So that'll be open at 4:30, as I said. I have been acclaimed chair for Tumuk Treaty for this year. So, and supported by staff, the meetings will occur here in Souk. And we'll meet when we need to, as items come out from the province. The committee is pretty clear. We're not going to meet to meet. And just a few other pieces that you probably don't know, but I should probably let you know about, is I'm also the co-chair to the Alliance to End Homelessness in the Capital Region. I'm also a juror for the BC Achievement Awards, and I was just made chair of the Victoria Transit Commission. So what else can I do? I'm just kidding. So anyway, it seems complex, but somehow nothing seems to collide with one another yet. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but some of these things are very short term and then they're done, and then they're short and then they're done. So it sounds like a lot, but it isn't, because many of these places, like we have awesome staff supporting us, they do as well, right? So when it gets into the technicalities of pieces, there's other smarter, more capable people ensuring that those technical pieces happen, and it's chairing a meeting. So it's a big departure for transit, especially following in the footsteps of Susan Bryce, who I believe chaired that commission for maybe 15 years and was certainly a very solid mentor to me. So I really want to thank her for her leadership on that commission as well. So I'll leave it at that. So I believe that concludes our agenda. On that note, one more thing to add, Councillor Lajeunesse is up.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that yesterday I attended a sold out performance of the Souk Philharmonic, their Tea and Symphony, and it was really good. It was really well done. And I wanted to thank the Lions or the Lioness or the Harborside Lions, whoever provided the tea. It was really good. The food was excellent. And yeah, it was a really great event.
I believe it was the Souk District Lions Club. You're trending on Twitter, by the way, because there was pictures of the tea and just all the work that they did. Well, I'm just kidding, but I saw the pictures. That's why I recognize the uniform.
I can't figure them out either.
It wasn't the Lions or the Harborside Lions. It was the District Lions Club. Yeah. There's 3 clubs. It's in the phone book. Yeah, under one family, Lions family, there's 3 clubs. It's in the Lions phone book. You'll find it there. We did. I'm glad it was.
I will
sold out.
pass it on when I see them, which is quite often.
Okay, motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Counselor McMath, seconded by Counselor St. Pierre. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone who attended and spoke earlier. To all of you for the work you're doing. Drive safe, be well.